Power in British politics rarely moves quietly. It shifts in the shadows, then suddenly someone gives it a name, and overnight it feels like the whole system is on trial. The moment phrases like "secret power machine inside Westminster" hit public conversation, the issue stops being one allegation and becomes something bigger. Who actually runs the show? That is why framing matters. When Nigel Farage presents Keir Starmer as the architect of a hidden machine, he is not just criticizing one leader's style. He is tapping into a wider anxiety that decisions are drifting away from open debate and into tightly controlled networks that ordinary MPs and voters never see. People hear language like power machine and connect it to fears about transparency, loyalty deals, and backroom influence. Nigel Farage has built his political identity on confronting what he portrays as entrenched establishments. His style leans into disruption, constantly asking who benefits from the way things are organized. Keir Starmer stands in almost the opposite role, a party leader trying to maintain discipline, keep a team aligned, and present a stable alternative government. When Farage paints Starmer as running a hidden structure, he is staging a clash between outsider critique and insider management. Behind that clash sits the real machinery of modern party politics. Major UK parties depend on advisors, research units, committees, and media teams to function. Complex policy and crisis management cannot be handled by one person or a handful of MPs. These structures are not automatically sinister. They are part of how large organizations stay coherent in a fast-moving environment. But once critics label them a machine, they stop looking like coordination and start looking like control. That word choice matters. Machine suggests something cold and unaccountable, a system that keeps running regardless of what ordinary members think. It raises sharp questions. Are backbench MPs being sidelined? Are internal debates being closed down before they even begin? Do voters still have meaningful influence once elections are over? Or are they simply watching outcomes produced somewhere they cannot see? Seen this way, the tension between Nigel Farage and Keir Starmer becomes more than a personal rivalry. It turns into a symbolic struggle over two visions of how politics should work. One role is to challenge concentrated power and warn when decision-making looks too centralized or opaque. The other is to argue that without firm grip and structure at the top, a party cannot act decisively or credibly govern. For audiences, the task is to move beyond the heat of the accusation and use it as a lens on a deeper question at the heart of UK politics. Who sets the agenda? Who gets to shape it? And how open that process really is.
Power inside a political party is rarely as democratic as it looks from the outside. Decisions that shape the country often begin not in public meetings or televised debates, but behind closed doors, inside a web of committees, advisors, and loyal confidants. In this quiet architecture of control, leadership operates, and the struggle between authority and accountability starts to sharpen. When Nigel Farage frames Keir Starmer as building a power machine, he taps into a tension that runs through every major party in Britain. Starmer, as leader, has to balance two forces, the demand for unity and the call for openness. His job is to keep policy, messaging, and parliamentary tactics aligned under one banner. To achieve that, he centralizes decisions, and centralization always carries risk. What looks like strategic order from the top can feel like exclusion from below. Modern leadership in UK politics rests on layers of control that are both formal and informal. The formal layers are visible: front benches, policy forums, and executive committees with agendas and votes. Beneath them sits the informal network, trusted advisors, specialists, and communication strategists who interpret, filter, and shape what reaches the wider party. Influence forms here, not only through titles, but through access and closeness to the leader. Keir Starmer's position, like that of any party head, depends on these structures to survive in an age of rapid news cycles and political shocks. Yet the tighter that coordination becomes, the easier it is for critics such as Nigel Farage to present it as manipulation. This is the paradox of party organization. Strength and discipline can be read as control, while openness and dissent can be read as instability. Party control is not automatically undemocratic, but its legitimacy rests on how it is perceived. If MPs and members feel their voices matter, discipline looks like unity. If they feel shut out, the same discipline looks like domination. Farage's language of a power machine speaks to the fear that a small inner circle can steer the ship while everyone else watches from the deck. The argument goes beyond personalities. When Nigel Farage challenges Keir Starmer's control, he is also questioning whether the party model still matches the democratic ideal it claims to represent. Accusations about hidden power resonate because they expose how leadership in Britain walks a narrow line between organizing politics and owning it.
When the lights are on in Parliament but MPs feel blindfolded, the crisis isn't just political, it's constitutional. The moment people start saying a leader has kept MPs in the dark, the accusation doesn't just bruise a reputation, it strikes at the core of what parliamentary democracy stands for: leaders held to account by those elected to scrutinize them. In theory, MPs are not spectators. They exist to question, challenge, and, when necessary, resist both government and opposition front benches. Committees, debates, and urgent questions are meant to keep power transparent. That constant pressure is what transforms authority into accountability. But when that link is weakened, when MPs feel cut off from real decision-making, the entire democratic process starts to look like theater. On paper, the communication lines appear strong. Leaders brief MPs, circulate memos, and outline positions through meetings and public statements. Committees can demand evidence, call witnesses, and publish reports. Yet these formal structures only matter if MPs believe they truly inform decisions. Once they suspect choices are made before consultation, everything else feels like ceremony. Modern politics accelerates this risk. The media cycle moves at the speed of outrage. Every statement is dissected within minutes. Under such pressure, leaders often retreat to a small inner circle, the trusted advisors who shape strategy before anyone else even hears of it. This is where narratives like Nigel Farage's find oxygen. When he speaks of MPs being bypassed, he draws on a growing sense that power now flows through invisible channels, guarded by a handful of loyal gatekeepers. For Keir Starmer, the challenge is constant. If he centralizes too much, he appears closed and overmanaged. If he opens too much, he risks division and the image of instability. It is a balance that every modern leader faces, the tension between control and consultation. That is why claims like those raised by Nigel Farage cut so sharply. They don't just question leadership style, they question whether Parliament itself still functions as the watchdog it was designed to be. For the public, this debate is more than political noise. It's a warning. When MPs feel excluded from real influence, the light inside Parliament may still shine, but the decisions shaping the nation may already have been made somewhere else, far beyond its walls.
Every headline today lands like a verdict before a single vote is cast. In Britain's hypercharged political arena, the battle to control first impressions is almost as consequential as the policies themselves. When Nigel Farage casts Keir Starmer as the architect of a hidden power machine, he isn't just making a criticism, he's setting the tone for how millions will interpret everything Starmer says afterward. The accusation becomes the lens through which all actions are judged, long before evidence enters the frame. Media framing works like an invisible filter. Once a perception takes hold, every press conference, every statement, every pause from Starmer can seem loaded with subtext. Farage understands this instinctively. He doesn't need to provide constant proof. He only needs to plant a narrative that feels true. The simplicity of the claim is its strength. It latches onto public suspicion and colors every future headline. Modern media intensifies this effect. Attention spans shrink while outrage expands. Short clips, dramatic thumbnails, and viral soundbites drought out complex explanations. The machinery of politics, committees, advisors, checks and balances, rarely survives the jump from detail to digital feed. What the audience sees instead is conflict: accuser versus accused, insider versus outsider, control versus rebellion. In that arena, Farage thrives. He speaks in sharp contrasts. Starmer, confined by the need for discipline and accuracy, must respond on ground already tilted against him. The outcome is a permanent tug-of-war over trust. When leadership is framed as secretive or controlled by hidden hands, even truthful statements sound suspicious. The accuser gains credibility not only from evidence but from posture, the outsider claiming to expose what others conceal. Farage positions himself as that challenger, tapping into long-standing frustration with elite politics. For Keir Starmer, the counter-strategy must be precision and composure. He has to show order without opacity, authority without arrogance. Each word, each delay, each clarification risks reinforcing the very suspicion he's trying to dissolve. The balance between transparency and control becomes a test of both communication and credibility. For the public, this contest is more than personality drama. It asks a deeper question: who defines reality in a democracy? Those who govern within institutions or those who frame them from outside? When a single political clash makes people question the entire system, you know the story has moved beyond personalities. That's what happens when Nigel Farage and Keir Starmer collide over hidden power and centralized control. The argument stops being about two men and starts probing the wiring of British democracy itself. The real question becomes brutally simple. Are the institutions strong enough to keep power honest, no matter who holds it? Allegations about secret machines or over-concentrated leadership work like stress tests. They push voters to look past speeches and slogans and ask harder questions about the rules underneath. Who oversees what? How decisions are made, and how easy it really is to challenge those decisions from the inside. The clash becomes less a scandal and more a spotlight, exposing frameworks that usually sit in the background, unnoticed but decisive. At the center of this sits institutional design. Party rulebooks, parliamentary procedures, committee powers, and ethical codes all claim to guarantee openness and accountability. But rules on paper are only half the story. If leadership circles grow too insulated, even the best written rulebook can feel hollow. One answer is to demand more transparency, clearer disclosure of advisors, fairer internal elections, stronger rights for MPs and members to push back without being frozen out. Defenders of strong leadership warn about the opposite danger. If every decision can be vetoed, slowed, or endlessly debated, government can grind to a halt. From that angle, some centralization looks like a necessity. Someone has to be able to decide, especially in a crisis. So the real debate is not centralized or not, but how much central control democracy can tolerate before scrutiny stops being real. Nigel Farage, by casting doubt on concentrated power, forces institutions to justify themselves. Keir Starmer, sitting inside those institutions, has to prove that his model of control still fits democratic norms, that discipline doesn't erase dissent, and coordination doesn't erase accountability. So here's the challenge to you. Do you think UK institutions genuinely keep leaders in check, or has the machine become stronger than the watchdogs? If you want more breakdowns like this, make sure you subscribe. Share this with someone who cares about politics, and tell me in the comments where you think the real problem lies: the system, the leaders, or both.